David Harrison was the kind of man everyone wanted to be. At just 38, he had built an empire from scratch. The founder and CEO of a multinational tech company, he was respected, admired, and envied. David wasn't just rich. He was smart, charming, and had the kind of confidence that made people listen. He lived in a luxurious mansion in New York City, with floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the skyline like a painting. Despite his success, David wasn't arrogant. He was grounded, approachable, and kind. But there was one thing missing in David's life: a family. David had married his college sweetheart, Julia, 7 years ago. Julia was a former model, elegant and ambitious. She loved their glamorous lifestyle, the parties, the travels, the attention. She had made it clear from the beginning that she wasn't interested in having kids. "We're not cut out for that kind of life, David," she'd say, brushing off the topic. "A baby would ruin everything." At first, David tried to agree with her. He told himself they were too busy, too focused on their careers. But as the years passed, he couldn't ignore the emptiness he felt every time he came home to their quiet mansion. Something was missing, and he knew exactly what it was. One evening, after a long day at work, David found himself scrolling through his phone, looking at photos of his employees' families on social media. The joy in their faces, the way they held their kids close, it stirred something deep inside him. He wanted that. Not someday, now. But Julia's answer was always the same. "David, we have the perfect life. Why would you want to complicate it?" David didn't argue with her. He loved Julia, but he couldn't let go of his dream. And then one day, he made a decision that would change everything. It started with a simple visit to an orphanage. David had heard about Little Miracles, a small organization that helped abandoned babies find homes. He told Julia it was a business donation. "It's good PR," he explained. Julia barely looked up from her magazine. "Do whatever you want," she said. When David arrived at the orphanage, he was greeted by warm smiles and the faint scent of baby powder. The director, a kind woman named Mrs. Peterson, led him to the nursery. "These little ones have been through so much," she said softly. Most of them were abandoned at birth. David's heart ached as he looked around the room. Tiny faces, each with their own story of struggle and resilience. And then he saw her. A little girl with big, curious eyes and a tuft of dark hair was staring right at him. She couldn't have been more than a few months old. She reached out her tiny hand as if she recognized him, as if she knew he was meant to be there. "This is Emma," Mrs. Peterson said, smiling. "She was left at the hospital 2 days after she was born. No one has claimed her." David knelt beside the crib, his heart pounding. Emma wrapped her tiny fingers around his, and in that moment, everything changed. He didn't think about his business, his mansion, or even Julia. All he knew was that he couldn't leave this baby behind. Julia was livid when David told her he was adopting Emma. "You can't just bring a baby home without asking me," she shouted. "This isn't a stray dog, David." "I know it's a big decision," David said calmly, "but I've thought about this for a long time. I want to be a father." "Well, I don't want to be a mother," Julia snapped. "You're on your own with this." David didn't argue. He hired a nanny, set up a nursery, and did everything he could to prepare for Emma's arrival. The day he brought her home was the happiest day of his life. Emma giggled as he carried her through the front door, her tiny hands reaching for the crystal chandelier. The mansion felt different now, warmer, brighter, alive. At first, Julia ignored Emma completely. She refused to even look at her. But as the weeks went by, something started to change. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Julia finally broke her silence. David was in the kitchen, feeding Emma her bottle, when Julia walked in. She paused at the doorway, watching them. Emma's eyes lit up when she saw Julia, and she let out a joyful coo. "She's cute," Julia said reluctantly. David smiled. "She's amazing." Julia didn't respond, but later that day, David found her sitting by Emma's crib. She wasn't holding her or talking to her, just watching her sleep. It was a small moment, but it gave David hope. Over the next few months, Julia's walls began to crumble. She started spending more time with Emma, holding her, playing with her. One evening, David came home to find Julia singing a lullaby to Emma, her voice soft and full of emotion. He didn't say anything, he just stood there, watching the two most important people in his life. "I didn't think I could do this," Julia admitted one night as they watched Emma sleep. "I was scared, David. I thought a baby would take away everything we had, but she's given us so much more." David took her hand, his heart full. "She's our little miracle." Emma's arrival changed everything for David and Julia. Their mansion, once cold and empty, was now filled with laughter and love. Julia discovered a side of herself she never knew existed, and David finally felt like his life was complete. Sometimes the greatest blessings come in the most unexpected ways. For David, Julia, and little Emma, their story was proof that love has the power to transform even the most reluctant hearts. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.